Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilmember Ross. Councilmember Hubler.
Present.
Councilmember Tapia.
Present.
Councilmember Littwer.
Present.
Councilmember Stone. Here. Councilmember Bloomberg.
Here.
Mayor Rotering.
Here, we have a quorum. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 16, 2024 regular meeting as amended and the December 11, 2023 closed session minutes for the committee of the whole?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Thank you. Scheduled business. We are going to be hearing from staff regarding various amendments to the city's municipal code pertaining to alcoholic beverages. Several amendments are recommended for approval, and there are several considerations where we are providing policy feedback this evening.
Good evening, members of the City Council. Just have to bear with me. I'm a little rusty since the last time I've done this, so. We'll start off with the review of our in-depth review that we did for Chapter 119. As part of our 2023 Major Projects Plan, members of the CMO team completed an in-depth review of existing liquor license code. The steps we took for this review was that we surveyed current liquor license holders within Highland Park. We sought liquor license information from North Shore communities and comparable Chicagoland area communities via the municipal clerks of Lake County, the Northwest Municipal Conference, and direct outreach. We reviewed the 2019 updates to the zoning code in regards to nano breweries, and we researched marketplace trends. Currently, the city offers 20 different license classifications that are comparable to area municipalities, and the city continues to fall in line with liquor license costs with those comparable communities, and sometimes our license costs are actually slightly lower. Staff continues to review ways the city can remove barriers to business operations, and we believe through these amendments, the city will be able to accomplish part of that goal. During this presentation, information will be provided on recommendations to Chapter 119 as it relates to general amendments, amendments to existing license classifications, and proposed new license classifications. Some of our general amendments that we're recommending are hours of operation based on our past conversation we had at the Committee of the Whole meeting, January 16th. There was a recommendation to update the Sunday hours, so we're recommending that update. License fees. Staff will continue to do a comprehensive review of license fees in conjunction with a full review of the annual fee resolution for fiscal year 2025. And then staff recommends to complete a review of these fees every 5 years. The number of licenses. Currently, there's no limit to the number of licenses issued. Staff recommends continuing this practice as it streamlines the process for applicants, and it is business friendly. Beer kegs, this is an interesting one. Keg registration is not required by the state of Illinois, but staff does recommend to amend this portion of the code. It's section 119.580A called permit tags required.
Wait till the end. Yeah, take notes and then, yeah, thank you.
Currently, this section of the code requires the city to permit to give out these tags. We're recommending an amendment that the licensee is the one that is required to purchase their own tags. As it relates to delivery of cocktails, during COVID, the state of Illinois amended their position on the sale of to-go cocktails. Currently, qualifying license holders of a restaurant or a bar license can offer carryout or delivery of mixed drinks and single service of wine for off-premise consumption. The governor extended this ability to those license holders until August 1st of 2028. Staff recommends codifying the to-go regulations as part of the city code in order to follow the state's lead on this initiative. And then also to review, again, this recommendation as we get closer to the expiration date of what the governor has provided. So we've had a few questions. Thank you. We appreciate your questions that you submit. Two that I'd like to cover that were not covered in the staff report, but that was brought to our attention. We have for the Class C1 license, we would like to further amend language for the C1 to remove the reference to musical performances, as that is antiquated and it doesn't really relate to our clubs now. The other one we would like to further recommend an amendment to is Class G, and we would like In our staff report, we requested a recommendation to amend 50 seats to 100 seats. We'd like to further amend that to actually have that be based on occupancy and not limit it to just 100 seats. Outside of those further recommendations, the rest of this was in the staff report. Are there any questions regarding just this specific part of it, the amendment to current classifications?
First, or is this not, is your?
Are we just talking classes here, or just the two changes to what you?
We can touch on this if we'd like to touch on this.
Okay.
So it would be between this one and then our existing classifications.
Go for it.
I can start. So hours of operation, I'm good with that. License fees, I didn't see anything that jumped out that was, out of line. Number of licenses, I agree with your statement, although I think if we do go towards a non-food option, like we've talked about, I think we should have that based on a number of licenses per area, based on kind of the number of storefronts in that area, some sort of ratio. Beer kegs, that doesn't make any sense to me. It says in the thing it's to keep underage people from drinking, and you put the label of the person who sold them the beer, but the person who sold them the beer sold it to somebody who was overage. So what's even the point? Because they're not selling kegs of beer to minors.
That's exactly our point. That's why we're recommending.
Which is why, why have the bar or Benny's put the name of who sold it? If you want to put the name of somebody, you put the name of who bought it. And that way, when the police show up, they see the beer tip, but they're just going to rip that off anyway. So that whole thing is just a waste of time, in my mind.
You're saying you do not want keg tags?
Keg tags they're no good. I mean, if businesses are selling to minors, whether it's wine bottles, beer bottles, whatever, it's not beer kegs for the most part. It's all those other things that they're going to be buying. And if they're selling to minors, they're going to sell everything to minors, and they hopefully will get caught. And I don't think putting a tag on a beer keg, even if it ends up at a minor's party, you're just going to go back to the seller and say, hey, why'd you sell this to minor? It's like, no, I didn't. I sold it to somebody. In fact, maybe here's his credit card number. So I don't know where we're trying to go with it.
Right. Chief, do we confiscate kegs at parties often?
Like my 31 years.
Okay, that's the question.
Right, so I just think it's pointless. We should just strike it.
Okay?
Delivery of cocktails, yeah, I think following the state's mandate is great, but I really think we need to be looking, to help our businesses out, we need to be looking at third-party delivery services. In certain areas, in the area, you can get a six-pack of beer delivered. During COVID, you could actually get that done. Well, I don't know about I think during third-party, even for a little while, you could get that done. I could be wrong. But we're going to be at a disadvantage if other municipalities such as Deerfield and Glencoe and other places start to say, hey, if it's prepackaged and you order, even let's say like a party tray for the Super Bowl, you order a thing of wings, why can't you get a six-pack of beer with that? These companies have been regulated to the point of being able to do that. I'm not an expert in it, but I think that's one of the things that could actually help our businesses out versus some of the surrounding communities. If you can order from here and get a six-pack of beer or whatever we're allowed to, because most of the places that serve alcohol aren't getting delivered anyway. So again, it's one of those things like delivery of cocktails. Who is delivering their own cocktails? Who even has any more of their own delivery drivers? There's very few, and even like Domino's is starting to deliver for other people sometimes and other third parties. So it's really kind of antiquated in that regard. It's really third parties that are going to help out the businesses if we allow the third parties to do it.
Do we know if other municipalities are allowing third parties to deliver alcoholic beverages? Sure.
So yes, and actually, now, like if you're door dashing or Uber Eats it from somewhere that has a license that allows for off-premise consumption, they can be delivered to you. So if you have an existing restaurant liquor license that allows for the off-premise consumption of beer and wine, you can sell that to go, including with your delivery, as long as you have those caveats in place to check into the ID of the person at the door. This caveat is specifically for alcoholic beverages like mixed drinks. That's what the state law addressed, was the mixed drinks, and that's why we recommend codifying that to align with the state.
Are you
I'm in agreement with codifying to align with the state. The thing that I would also, the state allows these third-party delivery services, but we don't in Highland Park. Correct?
I thought,
I'm not sure what, and nor am I sure that the other municipality, I don't think we're any different right now than Glencoe, Deerfield, or Northbrook.
I don't think we are right now either. I
Right.
don't think they allow it either right now.
Right.
oh, well, then let's ask that question and get that, I'd
No,
like
I
that,
just think it
I'd
needs to
like that
be looked
input.
into.
Sure.
But I know these services are doing it, just maybe not in this particular area. So
I've got
if
Annette
they're,
next, and then you, thank you. Keep
that
going,
was,
Jeff.
that was my end of this page. If we want to focus on this page, we can go around.
Anybody, well, I mean, let's do it by you just giving yours, and then we'll just go through each person. So Yumi, I see you as well. Okay, what else do you have for us, Jeff?
Well, the eliminating the Class B, I'm fine with that. Class G, I had a question of, does the Park District qualify? Class G license, was there a question on Class G, or did I just read that one? Oh, it was the Golf Dome
The
one, yeah,
specification
which
of the
obviously
Golf
I'm okay removing. But along those lines, if the Park District wants to have, I think it would fall into Class G1. I'm assuming the Park District would fall in there, and does it have to be indoors? Could it be outdoors and/or indoors?
May I ask, when you reference the park district, what do you mean? Because there is a separate park district license that they get themselves for park district properties. This Class G is for the current Golf Dome, but we're striking Golf Dome and we're expanding it to more of like a recreational facility.
Okay.
So that would be our
So the
recommendation.
Park District
for G.
has their own? Okay,
Yes.
I'm fine with that. And I'm good with the Class G1 striking golf domes. I think there are other places where that would be good. Class H, I agree with the changes. I don't even remember what Class H was.
It's a hotel.
Oh, yeah,
The
yeah,
hotel.
that's fine. SP expanding. Yeah, I'm good with expanding SP. BYOB, I think should be.
We haven't
rec-
gotten there yet. I don't mean to interrupt you, but we haven't gotten to BYOB. yet.
Okay. The last one I had was more of a question as I reviewed the classes. There is this, I'll call it a special, concession license for Ravinia Festival,
Yes.
which then their concessionaires have a secondary license, which makes their total license roughly $3,000, which is a lot less than a typical restaurant, small business in Highland Park would pay. That's the first thing, unless all the restaurants have their own liquor licenses in the festival, which I don't know the answer to. So my point is, all the restaurants in Ravinia Festival should have their own full liquor license if they don't.
And they do.
Okay,
There is a specific just for Ravinia Festival themselves, and then there are Levy Premium is the restaurant operator currently inside Ravinia Festival, and they obtain their own liquor license as a restaurant.
for each restaurant, or do they get one?
It's
for
under
all,
one
like,
restaurant.
8 restaurants they have.
It's under just Levy Premium currently right now. So currently they obtain an R1 license, and then they obtain an F license. Ravinia themselves, they obtain an RF license.
So they get to call all their restaurants
They
the
only
same.
Correct. So
For liquor license
Levy
standpoint.
Premium is the one that obtains the liquor license for the operation of the restaurants in there. So we have Treetop, and there is
Parkview,
Park. Yes, thank you. So Levy operates those, and Levy is the
Room, Parkview, Lawn Bar, Treetop.
Freeling. They don't sell liquor at Freeling.
Oh, okay, I don't.
Yeah, yeah. So Levy gets the R1 to operate the restaurants, and then they get F, which is the concessionaire sanctioned by a Class RF licensee for consumption on premise only. That is also obtained by Levy, so they get 2 licenses. Ravinia Festival gets just 1 license. It's an RF license, and it's for a nonprofit entity organized by a public presentation of musical art, et cetera, et cetera.
So if, I'll use Ballyhoo as an example, because we're gonna talk about them later. If they had 2 restaurants right next to each other, could they have 1 liquor license?
No, they have to have 2. So the difference with Levy Premium is that they are licensed at 1 address, which is 418 Sheridan Road. If Ballyhoo came in and they had 1 at 1850 and then they had 1 across the street, We only give one license per address, so they would have to obtain 2 separate licenses.
Same with the state, by the way. The state would only, issue it.
Two.
Oh, the state would only issue it, to, separate license, one per address, and not one license for 2 separate addresses.
Okay, that was it.
Okay, Annette?
Points, thank you. Class G licenses, I just wanted to be clear. I completely agree with increasing the number to 100. You're saying you want to do it to a maximum, is it a percentage of how many people are legally permitted to be in there? I just wanted you to clarify for G, classification. It says tables or booths for not more than 50 persons, not including seating accommodations at bars and counters. So you said you were going to raise it to 100.
But we're gonna further amend that to strike a particular number, and it would be based on occupancy.
Okay, so if the occupancy is 500, would it be a percentage of that? Or are you saying it can be up to 500? That's what I'm asking
Sure.
for clarification of. I fully understand 50 to 100, and in a large facility or recreational facility, I'm sorry, it makes sense, but I just want
Aaron
to
has
understand.
something to add.
Our recommendation would not to do a percentage, but to go off occupancy itself. And the reason being is most of these sports facilities are going to have large sports courts within them. And that's going to drive their occupancy, but you're not going to have people who are, let's say it was an indoor soccer facility. Occupancy might be higher so that you have people playing on the fields, but they're not all gonna be holding a cocktail while they're running back and forth, right? So you still wanna allow for it if there was a private event there or a mitzvah or something where you have, 200 people, if your occupancy was 225 and you had 200 at a party, to still allow them to sell alcohol at that point to those who are of age to consume it.
So when you say 500, theoretically, it could be 500.
Correct.
That's absolutely fine. I just wanted to understand it, so that's great. And then my other question had to do with, you took out the word sports facility, which I think is great. And I was just wondering if in all the places where you take out sports facility, if we could put in recreational facility, or facility even, just plain, possible in terms of inclusion.
Only in other codes, or?
No, in
Or just
these
in the
various,
liquor.
there are like
Yeah.
3 or 4
Yeah.
references,
Yeah.
not only the dome, but
That's a
other
good
places
cleanup.
to
Yeah.
sporting facilities, so I just wanted to make it facility instead of just sporting, because it could be a different event. That's all I have.
So if I can just follow up on that, this was changing from a golf dome to a sporting facility, not a recreation center, in part because, and why we would keep that, the occupancy piece, is because this is specifically about places where there are like large sports courts of some just as council wants. But our thoughts was, if you were to have a large space, that they are sports facilities, so this is more specific to sports facilities, they have limited food service and no requirements. And it wouldn't be something where you were just going to like hang out, this is somewhere you're going to do something active and then leave.
But
We'll
if
look at the
someone
we'll look
rented
at the
it
zoning
out,
definition.
if someone
Yeah.
rents out an area for a party, okay, and yes, it's a soccer game, but it's for a bar mitzvah, and they wanna have a soccer game, and that's their venue for it. So then it
My
would be
point earlier
a
was,
facility.
all of our codes should align, so let's
That's all I
look-
wanted to do.
Let's look at our other definitions.
I just
which
wanted
we
to be
didn't do for this.
consistent, thank you.
No, I'm sorry, you're not, we're going in order. Keep your thoughts, and we'll come back to you.
That's all,
Thank you,
very
patient
much.
people,
Next
appreciate it.
clarification.
Okay, Andres?
I
you're
know I'm
next.
next, but if it follows, Tony's point follows this conversation,
You're okay with that?
I'm okay with. to
And
follow
you,
the
me, are you
logic.
okay? And Kim, you're okay with, okay, thanks.
It was very minor. I think the term facility is too overbroad.
Any building is a facility, so you gotta, okay, thank you. Too broad. Okay, back to you.
Yeah, well, first of all, the general philosophy of the work that you've all done, I'm in agreement with. You want to streamline it, make it easier. And for, residents and visitors and all that, so I value that, the standing that you took, and then looking at the particulars. I'm going to defer to people that have a a lot more experience with the liquor commission or to running a business that sells liquor to get into the nuances of this and that and the other, but directionally, I can see that what you have proposed is in line with the philosophy. I'm supportive of these things. Just a small resident experience, and I don't know if this answers the question about delivery services, delivering to your house, but Benny's has, in Sunset, have delivered to our house packaged goods, and there's been no problem, and they ask for ID and online, and then they check when they go to the door. So I think we're covered on that one.
Well, their mixed cocktails are not packed. Like
Those are-
Those are all
those are-
pre-manufactured.
Yeah.
So the addition is the mixed cocktails, and then the addition I'm looking for is, why does Benny's have to deliver it?
Why can't DoorDash bring you a cocktail versus Benny's bringing you a bottle of vodka?
Or any restaurant, right? If a restaurant wants to do
Any
hot
restaurant.
cocktails, can they
Right.
deliver?
Right.
And I would be supportive of expanding that into cocktails.
Our recommendation would be to align with what the state allows, but we will confirm all that.
But at least from a business-friendly perspective, cocktails are a big part of their revenue, and so many people are ordering out, ordering in, or a delivery service.
Yeah, literally.
And to not be able to sell cocktails is a big part of your repertoire, just seems very short-sighted.
So
Totally agree,
we'll
yeah.
look into it. Nobody's called us, but we'll look into it. Yumi, you're next.
Going back, sorry to revisit it, I just wondered if there was value in, where you bought it, where you could follow the chain of responsibility of the
That's why I asked the question of the chief of, have we ever confiscated? Like, because that would be the time. It would be an underage drinking party to say, what's the line of,
chain of
but,
responsibility. They would have receipts for.
yeah, no, I appreciate your interest in doing that to protect underage folks from drinking. That was the why I asked, do we need a regulation if this has never been put into use, kind of a thing. So I appreciate you raising the question, though. Thank you. Kim?
So we've got 20 different categories. I agree with all your recommendations. Thank you for streamlining and making it easier. Still have 20, we've got close to 20 different categories even with these recommendations. Is there a reason that we have to be so specific? Like there's one category for art studios. Restaurants similar to that, and, could some of these things be consolidated? Or are there specific reasons why we're sporting, like why are the sporting facilities different from? I understand why restaurants are
Anybody
their,
else?
yeah, I understand why restaurants are their own category, but if something's not a restaurant,
It's a good question. I guess we could dive into it a little deeper. A lot of this we did take a look at and felt that some of it was still necessary. I do know that you did ask the question about the art studio. It is something that we can look into further. But also the Class B, which is related to like a brew it yourself, we are recommending to eliminate that and then incorporate the concepts of that into the nano license that we'll visit later on in the presentation. But that is definitely one. I've been doing this for almost 10 years and I've never issued a Class B. So I do see that it is it is an older license that we don't issue, so it does make sense to
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Tony?
Just a couple of quick questions. In terms of third-party delivery of cocktails or any kind of liquor, does the third-party delivery service have to also be qualified to do that? I assume the person.
Under the state law, it does.
Okay. I think with respect to the question that you raised, the multitude of different kinds of licenses, my experience has been to do that because we want to sort of keep track of whether those differentiations are really successful. I would like to maintain that. We're looking at some situations that may press the envelope, so to speak. Look at where these experiments work and when they don't. Without being oppressive.
That makes sense, given
And a data collection, if nothing else.
Yeah. Other than that, I'm again, generally comfortable with the recommended changes that staff has made. Department in an area that's.
Andres?
To follow up on Tony's recommendation, when you say data collection, are you suggesting, hey, some of this is new, let's see how it plays out, and then leave the door open, maybe in a few years, to say, can we streamline the number of licenses? Because, when Kim brings it up that there's like 20 different licenses, and the spirit of this is streamlining, make it easier, and, bureaucracy, why have 20? There might be some reasons to maybe have, 8, just to make up a number. So if we're going to not go down that path of relooking at the classes now to streamline it for the data collection, I would like to put it out there that we say that in a few years, we kind of treat it as data collection and we revisit.
Can I respond to that?
Actually, Ashley, I think, wanted to respond to that.
So this is our recommendation tonight. As we mentioned, for FY 2025, we're going to do a comprehensive fee review for the annual fee resolution, and then every 5 years after that. So when we hit that 5-year mark, we can definitely take a look at the classes we have, see if there are any more that are obsolete that we aren't issuing, and then at that time, we can make that recommendation again.
Did you want to respond, Tony, or no?
I think that's terrific. Yeah, just very briefly, we are consolidating a little bit tonight, and I think this will be consistent with the variety of liquor licenses.
And I'll just share, it's not like Target's going to go, ooh, I have more of an opportunity. Like most of the businesses that we're signing off on know that they're renewing year after year after year. It's not like it's difficult for them to go, which one are we going for? We just send them hey, send us your data. We review it, make sure nobody's gotten into mischief in the last year, and then move forward. So, I don't know that it's all that more business friendly. It's pretty clear if you're a restaurant, which one you're going to be going after, kind of a thing. I have Jeff and then Annette.
To Kim's comment, one of the things that I found interesting when reviewing this is we have basically beer and wine as a category, and I'll call it hard liquor as another category. And we charge more for the hard liquor one. If we wanted to eliminate probably 10 of these, you could just say, look, it really doesn't matter. You're all trained to do the same thing. There's no special training for hard liquor versus beer and wine that you're selling. And we're charging a restaurant, and a restaurant may choose that, especially a small place that might only have 10, 15 tables, I really don't want to pay an extra $1,000 to be able to offer somebody whiskey on the rocks. So I'm not going to get that license, and that may hurt them in the end. So if we are looking at consolidating, I would say we consolidate more towards what I will call the R1, but include the alcohol in it. So we lower the price a little bit, but include the alcohol. Although I guess I'd have to look at what exactly R2 is.
That sounds like what we're looking at in 25.
But yeah,
Correct.
exactly.
Yes.
So I think consolidating those and kind of finding the middle ground on the price would make a lot of sense.
Thank you. Duly noted. Annette?
Just quickly, I think that I don't really see this as streamlining categories. You fall in one or you fall in a different one. I don't think it's onerous on your license, and I'm a restaurant. I want a hard alcohol license, and I'm a hotel, whatever it is. So it's not. I don't view it. It's one thing if there were 2 or 3 steps to go through it. This is pretty straightforward. So I'm glad you have the categories, and it sounds like you already looked at some of the ways, and I hope you will reevaluate it based on the data. But I don't think it's about streamlining. It's really clear.
But we understand. I mean, obviously, we're all trying to support businesses and move things forward in whatever way we can, and appreciate you raising the issue. Kim?
I want to take back my comment. About streamlining, I've been convinced that I don't think there's a need for it, but I keep harping on the art studio thing. The fee just for that seems to be out of line with the fees for the other things. That's part of the review for going forward.
Yep, Jeff.
I I just realized when I was looking this over, the out you wanted to add, would that then be for only, would that be like a RS1? So you have to have that license which allows right now, consumption off the premise of original package?
No, this covers anybody who has a restaurant license currently, so it's an R1, an R2, and an RS1.
So the person who wants to sell a canned beer has to pay more because they're selling beer instead of a package of wine?
No, so the delivery of cocktails, this is, the governor allows anybody who has a restaurant, a current restaurant liquor license right now, whether it's an R1, an R2, an RS1, they can deliver cocktails, a can of beer, a 6-ounce quart of wine, a mixed cocktail. That is what we're trying to codify into the code because we don't have anything currently
But
right now.
R1 and R2 say on premise only.
Correct. So that's why we're trying to codify the code to include this. It's not in there currently right now, and this is what the state is allowing it without us having it in the code. We want to align with the
But
state.
the minute you do that, RS1 goes away because the only difference between R1 and RS1 is off sale, off-premise sale.
That's if you're gonna sell a case, or like a pack, a 6-pack of wine currently, and a bottle, or I'm
Not
sorry,
a single.
6-pack of beer or a bottle of wine. This is to go drinks. This is, I'm gonna pour a
Individual
6-ounce.
drinks.
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
My personal opinion on that is if you're allowing offset, you shouldn't charge somebody extra if they're getting us, I mean, you shouldn't charge the place that's selling a 6-pack more than you're charging for a bottle of a single. And I would think that would either fall into RS1 only, or we just eliminate RS1 and we just say R1 includes whether, I don't care if you buy one drink or you buy a 6-pack from a restaurant. I mean,
Isn't part of this driven by the state liquor code?
The delivery of cocktails currently is, yes. In order for,
So we're not operating in a bubble, obviously. We're under the oversight of the Illinois Liquor Control Commission, and then we're the
I don't
local
think
administrators.
the
But I just,
Illinois Liquor Commission has 3 categories for restaurants.
so I understand where you're coming from. I just also want to reiterate, we will be reviewing fees
Yeah, and
again going
I
forward.
was giving my recommendation on
Appreciate
we
that
appreciate your
particular-
insights.
Thank you. I do
Okay.
appreciate that.
Thanks. Are we now talking about new
Yes.
license? Okay, so do you feel like you have clarity in terms of what exists?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Everybody good moving on? Okay, let's move on.
Okay, to the meat and potatoes of this presentation here. Currently, the staff is recommending 7 new licenses or codifying into the code. I'll go through each one separately, but you can see the ones that we'll discuss. Unless otherwise noted, each new classification will be held to the same rules, regulations, and fee schedule as all other license classifications. There may be some new classifications that may need further review and approval as a use by the zoning code prior to the issuance of a license. And this serves as an opportunity to dictate where new classes may be allowed. For example, a bar with limited food service that can be allowed in certain business districts as directed by the council. So the first one we'll go through is consideration of a BYOB. Currently, bring your own beverage, bring your own bottle. Currently, this isn't addressed within the city code. It is currently allowed without regulation by omission. Staff recommends codifying the ability of a business to partake in BYOB practices at their establishment, with the understanding that businesses are responsible for ensuring that all laws and ordinances concerning consumption of alcohol on premises are allowed.
So where does the dram shop act? What's the nexus with that? If somebody else is bringing their own bottle, they overserve themselves, and then they go drive off into the night. What is the dram shop's nexus?
I will look at the dram shop provisions. I know that in most towns that have this, there is an indemnification by the restaurant of the city or the village, but I will get your answer on that.
That would be something that I'd want to better understand is who's making sure somebody's not bringing a bottle in, a bunch of kids are drinking, and then, or anybody old getting into an accident. Like, what is the typical, who's got the liability, who's got the control, who's making sure that people are safe in the aftermath of consumption? So I don't have any opinion at this point because I need more info. It's where I come out. Dram Shop Act is the law that holds the server responsible if they overserve somebody. It's the responsibility of making sure people aren't access.
Do we have serious
I mean, I just want to assess the
Yeah, no, I
risk.
understand that. I'm in agreement with you. I do want.
We don't allow it.
No, we don't
Oh, we
allow
don't allow
BYOB.
it.
No, no, so that's what this is,
That's the
opening
whole
that
point.
door and saying.
It's not in the code, and
So-
so it's not prohibited, which means people do it.
By omission, they
By
do it.
omission, it's, people are doing it.
People do it.
So that's why
I
we
did
want to
reference
codify it.
there's corkage fee. My anecdotal experience, but I'm wondering if there has been a problem in.
Not had a problem, and we know, for example, when someone brings a bottle into a restaurant, that it may be a type of drink that they're not selling. It's up to the restaurant to determine if they will allow it or not, or someone could bring, a bottle to get their nails done. We're not enforcing it, we're not doing spot checks on those establishments, we haven't had any concerns.
So my question is, if you're gonna now start codifying, then what are the other sort of accessory questions that need to be asked? So I have Kim, Annette, and Jeff, and others.
Are there any BYOB restaurants in Highland Park? Like, I can't think of.
No, we did have a paint and sip place on Sheridan. Well, no, that might have been the one previously, but one that we did have was a paint, but you bring your own beverage. So that would, from my experience, that's been the only BYOB that we've had.
Annette?
So
Oh, sorry.
I'd want answers to the same questions that the mayor asked, and if nobody is put
Why are we-
something,
or
yeah,
do-
put something in place that says it's not allowed, and unless there's some other.
At the risk of over-regulating, we're looking at liquor in general for establishments and responsibility and liability. I think it's very nice to offer the option of BYOB. What I would, if we end up doing something like this, like to be a BYOB restaurant. Therefore, someone who doesn't apply for this cannot be a BYOB. I'd like it to be a very minimal fee. So we are just saying, you are registering with us, and you can have, rather than someone who isn't registering. So now it's not by omission, it's the opposite. But we know that in that restaurant, someone may bring their own bottle, and then we're more cognizant of liability, dram shop responsibility. So I think as long as we're looking at licensure and responsibility in general for establishments, I think BYOB and responsibility is a part that we should take into account.
And I would just say that I think the fee needs to meet the administrative costs of having
And that's
this
all.
regulation. If you have enforcement, if you have other things, the
Right.
paperwork that we currently go through to issue these licenses, you need to cover those costs. So
Right.
again,
So I'm
appreciate
agreeing
the
with you,
business-friendly
but
approach, but we want to cover the costs.
At the very most minimal cost covering, I agree with you, amount, that's all I'm
Steve?
saying.
I have the dram shop language if you're interested. On its face, and I don't know of a case of the dram shop being applied to BYOBs, but on its face, it's, the liability is on a licensed establishment for selling or giving alcoholic liquor. I don't know that,
So if they are opening a bottle,
I don't know, what I'm saying is, I don't know if it's
How they
ever
have
been
an access.
interpreted
Yeah.
as accommodating to fall within this language. I will do some research on that, but I just want to give you the language
appreciate
of
it.
the statute.
Thank you.
May I ask a clarifying question to Councilmember Littleworth? You mentioned restaurant specifically. Are you saying BYOB specifically just for restaurant, or do you mean
Or
in
anywhere.
general?
Any establishment.
Nail salons,
Any
whatever.
establishment. So
Okay.
like, I
You were
love-
using that as an example.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
I just wanted
She
to
doesn't
make
want to
sure.
limit it there.
Okay.
Thanks. Jeff?
So I mean, I would, obviously, I take the dram shop law really seriously, asset certification. Any place that's serving alcohol, whether it's BYOB or not, they should all be certified. And they gotta assume they're liable, and us as a city have to assume we're liable, because, yeah, maybe there's a way somebody could wiggle their way out of that one, but I don't see it happening. If you overserve a table, or if you have a table and you don't card them because you're not BASSET certified and you don't understand it, and then the city doesn't have an ordinance to cover that, and
What do
I
you-
just,
yeah.
I think that is that's a bad loophole that we have, that we need to eliminate. I do agree, the one fee that jumped out that seemed to kind of go in line with this was there was the ability to, it was like a $500 fee for the ability to serve at, let's say, a jewelry shop. Very small, minimal fee. I think almost putting these two together, whether it's BYOB or you give it to your customers as a congratulatory thing, it's sort of the same. But they gotta be responsible, they gotta be BASSET certified, trained, so.
Can I make just one clarification for
Please.
BYOB? So BYOB is not always necessarily that you're bringing it in and the restaurant or the business themselves is opening it for you. There are places where I could bring in a bottle of wine and open it myself. So you're not necessarily always paying a corkage fee. The business themselves is not always gonna take the bottle and open it for you. So I just wanna clarify, yes, there could be some places where the business will open it for you, but most of the times in a BYOB situation, it is the individual or the party that is bringing it in that is opening it themselves.
Case in point, the lawn at Ravinia Festival.
It's a Highland Park establishment, and you did the little. And I brought the glasses, the champagne, the whole bit, and it was totally cool. And I forgot my corkscrew, so they had to cork it for me. And so I'm just saying, we want to look for the circumstance, and we want to protect everybody. And so that's why it's, yes, 90% of the time you bring your own and you'll open your own. But for the one time when you forget your corkscrew and someone at the establishment opens it, there could be liability. So that's why.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Andres?
Yeah, actually, it's good to hear my colleagues, because I was a little bit not understanding the benefit for the city to have a regulation around this, but the issue of liability is what is the underlying thing, right? That's where, so that kind of answered my question. But the issue about Ravinia Festival, though, I'm just trying to play out, how does that fit with
Right.
what we're talking about here?
Talk about BYOB,
I mean, that's, and this been,
Do you need an exception?
right? So that's part of the, yes, Erin?
So that is specifically outlined.
Okay.
Exactly,
So we already
that
have
actually talks specifically to bringing in your own.
but if we did one, because we don't have one, there's a potential they could clash, or do they
You
carve out?
would carve out an exception.
Carve out? Okay.
Issue of BYOB, I like the idea of regulating it, whether it falls within the Dram Shop Act or not, specifically because of the BASSET training involved, but a whole variety of establishments, and generally the Dram Shop is not considered responsible. I don't know how that will fit in if, well, it'll be interesting to find out what Corporation Council finds. I agree with you, that's sort of a starting point. I also agree that it's important if an establishment is holding itself out as, we want you to bring liquor when you come here to get your nails done, or when you come here for dinner, or get your hair cut, that person is encouraging liquor consumption on their premises and ought to be prepared to deal with it.
All right, moving on. Oh, sorry, Yumi, I didn't see your hand up.
For the, know that staff and the city looks at other municipalities. So this is pretty standard.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Onto caterer. So this is a license that would be for businesses that have catering operations, so their kitchen operates within Highland Park. This would align with the requirements of a state liquor license. It would allow a business to cater food and alcoholic beverages off-site and within the city of Highland Park. It allows a business to serve alcoholic beverages as an incidental part of food service. It would also allow for on-premise consumption only. So if they had their catering kitchen and they wanted to do a pop-up, and at that pop-up they wanted to serve alcohol, this license would allow them to do it. We're recommending that it falls in line with the cost of an R1 license, and we do have a business in town that this would really benefit. They do need it in order to obtain their state liquor license, because currently it was brought to our attention that they might possibly be operating out of compliance.
Great. Okay. Any questions about this? Yeah.
Just one, it seems like if they need a state liquor license as well, is the cost too high?
It's in line with the cost of a state liquor license.
So they're a catering business. They're not just doing this once. This is their business. Okay. Jeff and then Annette.
Many restaurants do both. So does the one license, like it says, are consistent with R1, but what if you had an R1 or you had an RS1 or whatever, then automatically also get the catering abilities?
Yes.
Okay, as long as you're not double charged, I think that's fine.
This would be for caterer specific type of business. Restaurants, kind of an example would be Michael's. They have a restaurant liquor license with us. They also do catering, and so they are able to use their R1 license with us to obtain both their state for restaurant and for catering.
So that's interesting. I always thought there was
They have to get different licenses from the state. So they're getting separate licenses from the state. They're getting one from us because they need a municipal license from us in order to get their state license.
Erin had her hand up.
So I just wanted to clarify, if you have an existing restaurant license, you're allowed to get your catering license from the state. But if you are a caterer and that's your main piece, that you have some like on-premise pieces, but most of your on-premise jobs are at private events or public events where you're catering on site, you need a catering local license. Right now, we do not have that. And we do have an operator who has come into like discussion with the state because their license that they have is not correct for having a state
Yes, Annette.
So I think you explained, on Old Deerfield Road, there's a large kitchen, and several caterers operate out of that kitchen. None of them have on-site events. They all do it at off-site events. Catering with alcohol is part of their business. So you're saying that they can cook it on Old Deerfield Road in those kitchens, and then they can come to my house and serve dinner to 100 people with alcohol, but they just need to have their license. I just want to double check that I'm
Correct, so when
understanding.
they're at your house, they're on premise at your house.
That's
as
what I
their
want.
catering location.
Because their catering
They
locations
can't sell your
outside.
guests bottles of wine to go.
Gotcha.
But I do also want to clarify we do have a large catering kitchen in that area where there are businesses that come in and just use that kitchen for
Right.
cooking. We don't license those caterers. Their main operation is in a different municipality and they get their caterer liquor license from that municipality. This is for Highland Park catering businesses specific. So their main business address is here in Highland Park. They need a municipal
But
license.
if they're one of those small ones that just rents out that kitchen, their business address would be the one in Highland Park.
No. They're
They
just,
have no other place of operation?
when they register their business, they're registering their business in whichever municipality that their main business operation. So if they do their billing and their books at a different address, they're just renting space to be able to use the kitchen. They're not actually operating out of that kitchen. Their main business operation is in like Deerfield or Northbrook. That's where they have to get their municipal liquor license from. If they're in Highland Park, that's why we need to have this liquor license that we don't
Yeah.
currently
Right,
have.
right now, it doesn't even exist, right? Right.
Okay. Sounds good.
Complimentary service. Thank you, Councilmember Hubler, for bringing this up. So we definitely have existing businesses that have expressed that they would like this. They want to offer patrons age 21 or over for a celebratory beverage. Businesses like this include a jewelry store for purchasing an engagement ring, anniversary gift, car dealerships after you purchase a vehicle, realtor's office after you close. Yep. Or mimosas, complimentary mimosas to customers at a spa. This would be consumption on premise only when it's complementary to offering an incidental or secondary of the primary activity of the business. We are requesting or recommending that it be limited to 2 servings per customer involved in the transaction. So whomever is involved within that specific transaction would be able to have the servings. We recommend the fee to be $500, but we would request to waive background and fingerprinting since this is it's minor, but it's not minor at the same time, but it doesn't administratively take that much. But we do require them to put with us their liquor liability insurance and confirm that everybody is Bassett trained that will be serving.
Oops. People okay with that? Yes. Okay.
Pop-up dining. In previous years, we've had existing businesses approach the city and express and want to offer patrons expanded services to include pop-up dining. The city already does have established provisions for pop-up businesses, and we believe that by creating this license, it would also be in line with the provisions that we currently have. If we are interested in pursuing this, we do recommend a 2-tiered type license. As you can see, tier 1, 20 events or fewer throughout a calendar year. Waive fingerprinting and background, because again, this is a short-term type license, but they will have to submit liquor liability and have a list of the people that are Bassett trained, and we would recommend the cost to be at $500. Tier 2 would be for consecutive 90 days. So if you have 3 months in a row, you're trying out a new idea for a restaurant that you're looking to open, but you're not quite sure you want to go full blown with this concept. So we recommend that it be a full application submission, similar to all of our applications currently, which would include fingerprinting and background checks. And then we would recommend the cost of the license to be $1,500.
Pop-up dining tier 1 be like a food truck? What would that? Aaron?
So we do have several restaurateurs and actually several other businesses who have been offering pop-up dining. Not all have asked us about liquor in these instances, but some have, and that would be more for your existing business, and you want to offer special dinners. So I feel like the Chunky Stone is a great example of someone who does pop-up dinners right now, but they're limited ticket run. It's only a few nights of the year that they do this, but this would allow them then to serve liquor.
Furniture store wants to do a pop-up dining inside the furniture store?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Andres, you had your hand up.
Actually, she answered my question. I was having a hard time picturing it. Now I get it.
Okay, Kim?
This is a great catch. I'm thinking of in Northbrook Court, there used to be a pop-up that was outside of the food court. There was one space where a different restaurant concept came in every month or two. I'm thinking of like that, an existing restaurant or some new restaurateur wants to create a new concept or something and comes into a space. That's what, this is a really good catch. But this makes me think of, I know there's a couple of event spaces in town. So is that covered under either
Catering?
the catering license, or is that covered under some other category?
So it
already?
really would depend on how they operate. Are they working with an outside caterer? If they work with an outside caterer, then that caterer, the outside caterer, has their own liquor license. In conversations with the event spaces that we've had, they aren't cooking or selling alcohol on their own. But if they would and they were doing it like catering, then yes, they would fall under the caterer license.
Okay.
Nano, so this is actually cleanup from 2019. We, community development did a review in 2019 to approve some zoning amendments that allowed for nano breweries, distilleries, meaderies, and wineries. We are now in the licensing world catching up to this. And again, our Class B that we're looking to eliminate, what we had set for that would then be incorporated into this. And then we would ask that it be aligned with the current RS1 license that allows for a business to offer consumption on premise and also allow them to sell the packaged to-go beer and wine, or if it's a distillery, then, you know, a bottle of vodka, if that's what they are making. And then the license classification would follow the outline regulations within the zoning code based on hours of business and the requirement of limited food service.
My only question is just in general, like when reviewing this, like no live music, entertaining, or dancing is permitted within the brewery or nano brewery. I mean, if you look at 28 Mile, they do a lot of their business because they have little shows or dueling pianos back in the day and other things. Like, what's really the purpose of that? Because we also have live music outdoor zoning codes or special use codes requirements and stuff. So if somebody like 28 Mile was looking at here or Highwood, they would be like, well, I can't do music, so I'm gonna go to Highwood.
No, there's exceptions.
Oh, did I
Special use
misread
permit.
it?
There is.
Use permits.
You'd have to go to community development to
Oh, so it
discuss
does
the
have
special
discretion.
use.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Requires additional consideration.
In the last bullet point D.
Okay.
Okay with that, okay.
Okay. Okay, accessory use. We discussed this on January 16th, this one and then our next one during committee of the whole. So this would be for retail sale of alcohol to be consumed on premise where the sale of alcohol is incidental or secondary to primary use. Businesses that this could go along with would be a spa, salon, a barber shop. If interested in pursuing it, we would recommend that the alcohol only be served within the hours of the primary use of the business. So if they're open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., that is the hours that the alcohol can be served. We recommend that they also have a limited food service provided with this, and we recommend the cost of the license to be in line with an R1.
The answer is no, we haven't heard anything, so we've not directed. Just in case you were wondering.
So we had talked, all right, so yeah, here's the last sentence that I'm interested in. Given to maximum floor area, number of seats available for consumption of alcoholic liquor in addition to seating provided for services. I think that's a big determinant of whether it's ancillary or somebody's got a side gig going on within their salon. I think both are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree,
Frankly.
I'm adding
Yeah,
it in.
okay, thank you, yeah.
On the record for that, like if you have space for 20 seats,
20 seats that you're getting a pedicure or 20 seats at a bar?
20 seats for a pedicure, because we're talking about ancillary use or accessory use. So you have 20 stations
Uh-huh.
for mani or pedi, and you put in another, and those stations, or would you have a special bar area maybe with 6 or 8 seats in it?
And Joel and I, we've talked about this, we talked a little bit after the last meeting.
Thank you.
We would look to more traditional definitions for accessory or ancillary. We have them in our zoning code. And it just requires to be subordinate in area, subordinate in revenue. I mean, there are different ways to measure it. We would propose that we be consistent with our other codes.
So how ancillary is described or defined is how
Under
ancillary would be used,
yeah.
or
Perfect, and
accessory.
that answers my question.
And
I just
it-
want to make sure there's a definition rather than 15, a ratio of 3 to 1, 2 to 1.
Hard and fast definition, that's a good question.
No, I
Because
know.
Sometimes it's a determination, right? So it's a tests that need to be met. Except when, in the zoning code, on how, right, how you want those decisions to be made. I look at it as you don't want to have the tail wagging the dog, but admittedly, it's a bit of a heuristic. Those, what are we looking at, and does it meet the test? That. There's lots of ways you can do that, and just looking at the floor area is generally what we look at. Pedicure stations, and then you have a little wet bar over here with 3 seats, but the whole place is difficult is when the accessory use starts to challenge the primary use. And that's when I look at it, I see floor area, I see what does this strike you as when you're coming in here? It's also that, right? Is this a bar or is this something else, right? And so why are you going to the place? What's the principal reason? Like, that's a great place to go get
Right.
those kind of things.
Well, those people
you
get their
gotta-
nails done
right.
over there, yeah.
So if it's a cart, if it's a beverage cart that somebody brings around while you're in pedicure chairs, that's one thing.
Right.
That's incidental, that's clearly. An accessory, it really depends on the size of it and what, like I said, does it look like the tail wagging the dog or
Right,
not? And does
right.
it present?
You mean?
What if that shifts over time? It's ancillary to begin with.
Definition allows for it. It's only allowed as an accessory or ancillary use. And if it starts, just like anything else, if you start using it illegally, you cross the line and it's an enforcement issue.
Yeah.
We can deal with this by using
code?
consistent definitions.
Jeff?
I think my thing when I look at this is I would want to consider this as a very small change to the footprint of the existing facility. Probably not really even an R1 fee. I see this as the Manny pedicure place or even a haircut place where there's no bar, there's no extra seats, but they can have a drink while they're getting their haircut. And then I see the other thing, which I think we're talking about next, which is a bar and that would be a 2580 type fee.
Do we have any regulations concerning storage of alcohol? For example, if this were at a nail salon and somebody had cases of champagne, how to make sure that people aren't just grabbing bottles and running for.
I'm
that
not
like a-
sure that our code addresses that regarding storage, but it is something we can look into.
Back to the question of access. Okay. Annette?
So, I really like your definition, Joel, and it's very helpful, almost to look at it the way we have already codified. Because I don't think it's wrong, or not wrong, if it's a manicure shop or it's a barber shop, and they do have a speakeasy there, that could be a very interesting and nice component. And so I don't really have a problem with that, as long as it's like 2 tables and 6 chairs or something. But it was really, to Joel's point about coming in to get a haircut. And those hours would keep it that way, so it's not a hard and fast number. And I like this definition very much, and so that would be kind of my guiding thought. But to your point about responding to Yumi, the primary use is the primary use. And whether we call it a speakeasy or a bar or whatever we call it, it's ancillary or it's not in compliance.
I just appreciate Joel using the word heuristic. Go ahead.
I'm very impressed.
You can see how this evolves.
Totally. Talk about an apt use, but I haven't used it in like 50 years, so thank you.
Bringing a new vocabulary.
Right.
You know,
Thank you.
discussion on ancillary use or accessory use, the definitions and the restrictions that have been suggested make sense for what this is, and I would, be in favor of it. But I look forward to the conversation about, what's being suggested for full bars, because I don't want this restriction to then restrict, some other possibilities. For what it is, it makes sense.
So it sounds like a segue.
Okay.
More to come on the accessory use.
Bar with limited food. This did come up again on our January 16th meeting. License classification would require limited food service. This means if you want to have a small plate, a charcuterie board, sandwiches, salads, wraps, etc., items like that for food, but it would be required with this. The license classification would allow for on-premise consumption and then also would allow for the sale of beer and wine in the original package for off-premise consumption. It would operate consistently with the hours of business that are outlined in the city code that we made a suggestion earlier to amend. Cost of the license would run in alignment with an RS1 classification, and it would be allowed as a permitted use in all commercial districts except B1, which is in line with section 150.440 of the zoning code. Staff recommends setting a limit to 1 license for this class at this time. There would be a requirement that additional requests go before the Liquor Control Commission, and then it would go before the City Council if the Liquor Control Commission decided to move it forward. But we also recommend that after 1 year of having this license in place, that we come back and review it. And then if there are no issues between staff and the council, we would then recommend at that time to have this license be in line with the approval process of our other liquor license classifications.
Do we know which of, and this is going to come off sounding inappropriate, but which of our peer communities allow standalone bars and which ones do not? That's
Yes.
right, but I'm like, does Glencoe, does Winnetka, does Lake Forest, does Northbrook, does Glenview? Right, so I just,
Don't know about Glenview.
Glenview's.
okay. So just sort of, and what's Pine Licks? Well, I guess it's a restaurant, I don't know. Okay, okay. So I'm just sort of curious, because I did get a bunch of emails with the business we were considering a few weeks ago from agitated neighbors in Ravinia, saying, what are you doing? Why are you opening a bar on Roger Williams? So I think there's a larger conversation around this than just a handful of us at the committee of the whole. I think if the community knew, we'd hear from both sides, but I'd be kind of curious to hear from both sides, just laying that out there. And, you know, BDAG, who is sort of responsible for business and economic development, like, what is their thoughts? So I just think this is a larger question than just a handful of us shooting the breeze around the table. Annette, you had your hand up first.
So I don't like the idea of 1 license to start with review after 1 year. We're going to open it up, and I think they should all be reviewed within 1 year. That we want to proceed with. So I don't like the idea of 1. I also think that the cost is extremely high. The reason I say that is, if this is truly ancillary, they're not making a lot of money.
This is
This
not
is an
ancillary.
ancillary.
This is a
It's a bar.
Bar only.
standalone.
Bar only.
Yeah. Charge them the $38.20. I'm sorry.
This is a standalone bar.
Yeah.
Just, Erin already
But I
has her
still
hand
agree
up.
about the 1 license. I don't like
I
the
agree
1
with that
license
as
to
well.
start.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You're
forget the
either in or you're out.
ancillary.
Erin?
So I just have a clarifying point on the 1 license to start. That would be to the code that says that there's no limit currently on number of licenses. By saying 1 license to start, that would be for the applicant that's already before us. And if other applicants in this 1 year period open a similar business, they would have to go to the Liquor Control Commission and then get council approval.
Yeah.
But-
Not the applicant before us, because they said.
There
they were
is no
gonna do
applicant
ancillary.
before
There's
us
no
because
applicant
there's
before
no
us.
application to be
Yeah,
filed.
application.
But the consideration, Aaron is right, is if the code says 1, anyone else coming in has to go before the Liquor Control Commission and then City Council for approval. So we could have 10 if the Liquor Control Commission and the council support it, but it's 1 at a time, subject to council approval.
And I would challenge that, because those who came before the Liquor Control Commission did not have this as their application.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
just an ancillary, they
Yeah.
weren't a standalone bar. So to my point, nobody has come before us.
Right, and I guess to be clear, and it would also assist me in drafting if I ever am given the materials from the applicant, they would be eligible to come before the Liquor Control Commission to expand if they had the accessory license to expand into this, if you were both allowed.
Right, if that ordinance were written,
Right.
and if an application were
A
available,
lot of
then they would.
hypotheticals there, but I just wanted to make
Right.
Yep, all
it
right.
clear.
I have
It's open
Andres
for
and then I have Kim. Did you not have your hand up?
No, I didn't.
All right. Kim and then Jeff.
I agree with the mayor's points that this has to be a larger conversation with the community involved. But given that no neighboring communities except Highwood allow this, and that our business districts are really within close proximity to residential areas, I don't know that I'm interested in doing Highland Park and to life for people who, especially those who live in those areas. Just done work within the central business district and the area around it, add more residential units. And those people who moved into those residential units did not do so with the understanding that they'd be next to a bar. So I'm concerned about this.
Jeff and then Andres.
So this is going to be written, not really to say there's one license, it's just gonna say you have to go in front of the liquor commission.
If we
The way
decide
the
to move
code's written,
forward with
right? And
this.
I'm fine with that. I don't like the idea of just one. I like the idea of you go in front of the liquor commission and,
So you're supportive of standalone bars?
It's not
oh, I didn't say it, I'm not done yet.
Just to be clear, I mean, that's not the staff proposal, is that there would just be one
Right.
available,
reads
but
that.
that's the recommendation, that.
I don't think
Only
that's.
if you wanna do this. I
Right.
guess let's just
Right,
preface that. I guess
so-
the first question is, do you wanna do this?
Right, and there,
Right.
I have multiple things which
Yeah.
kind of get into some of that. But the first would be, I don't think you do limit it to one. I think you have a process to get it, which requires city council approval until we decide that we really want to do this, if we want to go down this path. Along those lines, I think if we ever did this, the idea of a light lunch or dinner and a snack seems silly to me and is going to create an onerous process for somebody to have to now get a food license and be able to store food and do all these things. It's kind of a joke, really. I mean, if we're going to allow
You're either a
standalone
bar
bars,
or
we
you're
just.
not a bar.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
you're a bar. If you're a bar, you're a bar. And then I agree with the mayor that, hey, just like there's other things I think, and we're talking about one of them in the city council meeting with banning products for people over 21. I think we need more city input. And I think this is one where we would somehow have to get more feedback. And I haven't been around long enough to know how the best way for staff to do that is, but whether it's BDAG or another way, I do think it's something we should consider, but I don't know if we have that information of what the community wants. I do think if we eventually get there, an overall limit would be good, but I don't know what that limit is, but I think it should be sort of district-based. The cost is very high, but I'm okay with that for a bar, but I kind of feel like the idea of a bar, like one of the things I don't mind so much about the speakeasy they're talking about at Ravinia, it is pretty small. Like if we were to have a bar, it's bar only, I would want it to have a very small footprint. Something where local people can just go and, I don't know
Get a
what that
drink.
number is, but it's small is where I would think we would want to start, not with the ability to have a 100-seat bar in the middle of downtown. And I don't know why we would allow what I'm envisioning as a bar to have to-go sale of beer and wine
For off-premise consumption.
for off-premise consumption. I mean, it's a bar.
It's
I
pretty
think we should
common.
try to-
It is pretty
maybe it
common.
is. I don't know.
It's pretty common. Someone comes in and they have a glass of wine that they really like. Bars do offer to sell it to you by the bottle for off-premise consumption. They do it in Illinois too.
For example.
So, it's sort of in the spirit of, really wrestling with this, because, the demographics in Highland Park are changing. And so we have, a lot of people from the city that moved in who love Highland Park, but also have a more of an urban feel to it. And if you go to quiet neighborhoods in Andersonville, for example, in city line, quiet, but there might be like a small corner bar that's so welcoming. It's so, they're not rambunctious and they're not loud and they just fit. Like I went to one, just recently, and at first I is there a bar here? And then there was on the corner. And it was just, and you could just see the locals just come and just really have an enjoyable time. And it wasn't big, it was really a neighborhood bar. And I think there's a way to wrestle with this and say, you know, maybe we're not talking about 28 Mile, you know, type of bar, but maybe some of these community bars, neighborhood bars that fit within sort of that spirit of we do have these commercial districts, Ravinia, down here, which is
Bless you.
this touch point, right, of residential and commercial. And you know, even Ravinia Brewing has proven to be a place where people gather, and yes, they serve food as a restaurant, but it's, you know, there's a big bar there, but it's small, I mean, big in meaning, in the context of the space, but it's a small space. And I know we've had to deal with noise issues and stuff like that, but I think the give and take of the neighborhood and the business trying to really find a happy medium, and I think we've been pretty successful at that. So I can picture a place like the one that has been put in front of us to consider working and putting the right parameters about hours of operation, or when there could be music and live music and all that stuff. I think we can manage it. And to come back to the issue of demographics, especially Ravinia District, is the stop point for a lot of urban families that have moved in and who love that
Who love going to
uniqueness
bars.
of it, but they like the local bar and they like the mixture. And they themselves, I think, would want that combination of quaint and quiet, but also lively, and finding the balance.
I'd be kind of curious to know, because there are several restaurants in Highland Park that do have sort of established bars and have that opportunity for people to come in and just sit at the bar and not necessarily get food. And I'm kind of curious to know, like, what that percentage of their business is. Kim had her hand up, Tony had his hand up, and is it related to the limited food bar?
No, it's just next steps.
Well, if we could just get feedback on this, like, do
Let's
you,
finish getting, and
Yeah.
Yumi as well. So Kim, Tony, Yumi, and then you're done? Okay, Tony?
Personally, as it stands now, I'm disposed to. There are a number of other things that we don't have in Highland Park. I'll give another impression about people moving to Highland Park. I'm comfortable with the idea of having a larger about this. Like a lot more data about the kinds of activities restaurants that provide liquor service, like Ravinia Brewing or Norton's, and also go to get a drink instead of getting dinner, but primarily sell food. So I'd like to understand what we're inviting if we start increasing. Is it going to increase business around crime, and what kind of crime? Other kinds of enforcement issues. So those are things that I want to consider, and if we do it, I would want to do one at a time. Start with
A
simple
heuristic.
permit, everything has to be addressed.
And I also don't know just because it's a and that said, I am of the mind of open as possible to ideas, and have the data, if we, what everybody else said about getting information, getting all of the questions that we have at the table answered, about what the effect could be on the community. I would want to see all of that, but I'm just saying that I am open to the idea of it if I feel comfortable that it's going to be pluses outweigh the negatives.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Do you have
Yes.
on the poll that people want?
Oh, within this table? It seems to me like there is no consensus.
Well, then-
My sense is that there are 3 who are just not interested. There are some who want more data, and there are some who are open to gathering more data and coming to it's like, I think we've full spectrum on this one.
So is that enough for you?
No.
So what we could do, if you're amenable, is we could just put together an outline of suggested next steps. Because I've heard a couple of people say that are not interested, but you're also interested in getting feedback. So,
Well, you're looking at me when I say that, so let me clarify.
okay, yes.
I'm opposed to it. I don't really need much additional feedback, but if we're gonna go down that road, I've indicated the kind of feedback I would like.
Got it, okay, and we've taken those notes. So,
And I'm opposed, and I've heard from people who are opposed, but we haven't really, the question isn't really out there all that much in
Yeah.
terms of, but those who live, at least in Ravinia, have written to me and said, how many bars do we need on Roger Williams? We already have a bunch of restaurants, they have bars, why do we need a standalone bar? We're opposed to a standalone bar.
For me, I would like to get more information. I'd like to not for these big, whatever kind of bars, the mile.
Like big sports bars.
Yeah, but I think that for local corner community. And if it points in that direction, I would be in favor of it.
Yeah, and actually into, the bar idea, concept, adjacency, whatever you want to call it, over in Roger Williams that we talked about last time. I mean, her concept is to show jazz piano and, Swedish night and stuff. So, I mean, that could also be part of factoring. It's like there's bars and then there's bars, right? It's kind of like a arts type bar thing that could also be factored into the kind of establishment that it is. Is it a sports bar is very different than sort of a jazz loungy kind of thing. So
I don't know that that's something we can regulate.
Right, within the license, you're not going to be able to say,
Yeah. That you've got to do it in conjunction with Russian ballet versus in conjunction with a soccer
Sports.
game.
Right.
And her concept changed multiple times. Her application to the Liquor Control Commission we talked about once she got here. So I don't know that we can specify. It's either going to be this or it's not going to be this.
either a standalone bar or it's not, but it's conceptually whatever the owner wants.
the direction that we've given her, though, is accessory, not this.
Yeah.
And so that's what we would
That's
enforce.
Right,
So
because we don't
if,
have
so
this
if we get a
ordinance.
business plan that shows bar with limited food, we're gonna say that there's no support for that.
Yeah,
Point.
At this point.
But in
Right.
terms-
At this
At this
point.
point, yes, thank you.
Right.
But in terms of this, I guess you want us to put together, at least for this concept, a consideration for public feedback? What steps would we do to
I'd
get
put it
your
in the
questions?
Highlander and let people
Well,
send
we'll go to
an email.
BDEC, I mean, we've got different
Right.
steps, we reach out to the businesses, but we can identify, so it's super clear of how are we
I'd be
going
kind
to
of curious to get
engage.
BDAG's input. Yes, Kim?
Okay. Sure, yeah, yeah. We can put together a list of, there's multiple things that we'll do in terms of public engagement and get feedback. Document that, so we're all on the same page of how that will look. Okay.
A process for like PDC, for example, where community gives feedback. Something like this?
Well, but that's
mean,
more for
it's-
an individual application. This, I think we're looking at. broader
Or if you're doing a
policy.
zoning
But
code
maybe,
change.
well, but I'm almost thinking like this falls in like a PDC
Zoning
project
code
where it's
change.
like, you can do this, but you gotta go to the PDC and get community feedback and have the discussion and get approved.
You
I don't
could, you
know.
could make it have a zoning nexus in terms of school proximity and residential proximity and all of that.
Yeah. We'll use different modalities, because we also want to do the small group discussion rather than a formal public hearing that like a PDC would do. So we'll put together all the
That's the
steps
big
that
thing
will
for me is,
undertake.
I,
Yep.
I think it being new to this, I think that's one of the things I struggle with is like, I wanna represent what the people want, so getting the feedback I think is great.
Yumi?
I really want to hear what residents care about, you know, I mean, that is.
Well, know that we're going to start our neighborhood meetings pretty shortly, and we can certainly say, by the way, we'll be asking if you're interested in allowing bars. You know, I mean, we generally say to the public, it's your agenda, whatever is on your mind, we're here to, and I don't know if you're familiar with that concept, but it's both school districts, the park district, the township, us, and who am I missing? The county, if they want to come, all the governments are invited. And we have them at different times of the day, and we have them in different parts of the community, and that's how people are able to ask anything that's on their mind. They are, they previously were very well attended, now they are de minimisly attended.
That was like 4 people.
Okay, many people have their hands up, and, all right, Tony, and then Yumi, and then Andres, if that's okay.
If we are going to have public input, I'm of course interested in what residents have. I don't make decisions based on majority rule on individual. In a democracy, a majority rules on one thing, and that's elections. Once we get elected, in my opinion, it's our job to try to do what's right for the community. Sometimes that is not what a majority of people express. I am interested in what people think, what they're concerned about with respect to a freestanding bar. Those things are certainly important.
Right, we're not like taking a survey to see, oh, 30,000 support and 1 opposes. No, that's not how we do things. But, okay, Yumi and then Andres.
Well, you know, I hear you on that. Just it would make a difference. Negative reaction.
Mm-hmm.
It would really cut it off at the knees, for me.
Well, I think the biggest question is, why do all of our peer governments, peer communities not allow it? And there certainly are reasons that are societal in fact, but, don't want to be the old farts, sorry, wrong word, who sit here and go, thou shalt not have fun in the dry city of Highland Park, which we were at one point, which Evanston was at one point. But I think it is important, to your point, we do represent this community. If people don't like it, come back in 25 and find people who want a freestanding bar if you think that, whatever. So I think it's just a matter of, let's sort of put it out there, see what people say, but I do want a better understanding of how cities make those decisions or don't make those decisions. We don't allow video gambling. We don't allow, certain types of entertainment because of who we are and how we have viewed ourselves. So I think that's an important part of the conversation. Andres, you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah, if we're going to do some listening, I would urge us to be careful about how we frame the conversation. Say, hey, do you want bars in Highland Park? Well, that can connote all kinds of things, Everybody loves Highwood, but they say, we don't want Highwood here, and, that's not the question. And bars come in different sizes and shapes, and there's some very modern views and approaches to bars that are very elegant and classy and jazzy, whatever you call it, and small and contained. So if we're gonna ask the bar question, we just have to be careful about what it connotes in people's images, which is an old-fashioned way of looking at it, very modern ways of looking. And we have to say, when we talk bar or liquor establishment, or whatever we call it, just make sure that we're framing it as, there's a lot of possibilities here to consider. It's not just a traditional stereotype.
And municipal regulations are all different. That's why you can't look at the municipal codes and say they permit a bar, because for some people, Norton's is a bar. They've got a bar, and a lot of people just go there and sit at the bar, and some people go to dine. So absolutely, we will be clear and thoughtful in how we're communicating as we obtain.
Okay, given that we do need to grab dinner and get into our meeting in a half an hour, Ashley, I'm going to pass to you next steps.
So our next steps, based on the feedback that you guys generously provided to us today and provided direction, we will work with Corporation Council to draft ordinances to amend the general amendments that we had, the amendments to our existing, and then the new licenses that you guys were interested in moving forward with. Also, please note, some of these may have to go to PDC for formal consideration before we could issue a license, so that piece might take a little bit more time. And then council would have to approve those text amendments if it is required. Once we are through these steps, we plan on providing communication to existing license holders, stakeholders, and the business community at large.
Thank you. Thanks for a great presentation and conversation.
Really, really good.
We need a motion to adjourn this committee of the whole.
So, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks.
We are adjourned.